Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really into the Krays, join our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London, where you can find stuff possibly unavailable anywhere else. We're an established group and very friendly. The link is in the YouTube description section.
Hello again and welcome back. We continue the story of our journey through the madness of the 1950s and 60s London gangster scene, when me and my brother Ron ran the East End and other parts of the capital with fear. I often think about my cousin Rita and her family. Like me and Ron, she loved pets of all kinds. She was always picking up something or other, so much so that her mother would have to warn her every morning, "Don't you bring any cats, dogs or birds home tonight." A Jack Russell dog followed her home one time, or so she said. "Mum, can I keep it?" "No, it belongs to someone," Aunt May replied. Rita pleaded, so May said, "All right then, if I open the door and it goes out, that's it. But if it stays, you can keep it." She opened the door and the dog took a couple of steps towards it, then had second thoughts. Rita quickly slammed the door shut before it changed its mind, and May gave in and let her keep it. Rita didn't always have such luck with her pets. She once bought a tortoise, and when she showed it to Nan Lee, Nan said, "Make a nice ashtray, that would." Never found out if Nan got her way. Another time, I had bought an Alsatian dog to guard the Carpenter's Arms, a pub we owned. We had a manager running the place, and after a while, I noticed the dog was looking a bit thin. I felt it wasn't being fed as it should have been, so I gave it to Aunt May and gave her money every week for its keep. She named it Rex. The dog was trained to bring down Rita's cup and saucer from her bedroom one at a time. As all the houses in Valence Road had outside toilets, May, being a bit old-fashioned, would put a chamber pot under her bed. She never used it, but how could she tell that to the decorators who were in the house when Rex came down the stairs, handle of the pot firmly in his mouth, and placed it at her feet? The dog thought it was a big cup. Rex eventually proved himself as the guard dog he was bought to be. Two blokes were acting a bit suspiciously at the back of our house. Albert let the dog out, and it pinned one of them to the wall. He's shouting, "Get it off me," and Albert's shouting, "You've got no right here, what are you up to?" They were plainclothes coppers. Brave as that dog was, it would never go into May's front room, no matter how much they tried to coax him. Nobody was more level-headed than Rita, but she had a good idea why. As far as she was concerned, the place was haunted. I have no reason to doubt her, for with gypsy in her blood, she may well have inherited sensitivity for such things. On one occasion, she saw a little old lady wearing an old-fashioned dress with a high collar. Her hair was in a rolled-up style, and she wore a very distinctive brooch. When she told her mother, she said it sounded like old Mrs. Doyle, a previous occupant who'd been dead for years. Years later, Rita moved into a flat and had to give Rex away. Every time she carved some meat, she'd cry, thinking of how she'd always given him the first piece. Ron and I had pets from when we were small kids right up until we were put away. We had budgerigars, canaries, chickens, mice, rabbits, a couple of boa constrictor snakes that we named after two policemen, Gerard and Reed, and I even had a small monkey that I'd bought in a pet shop in Camden Town. One of the funniest pets we had was a minor bird we called Jackie. It was jet black with a yellow beak, and when it suited itself, it would shout, "Let's go out and get some money." Most of the time, if you said, "What's your name?" it would say bollocks. Or if it was asked, "Who's a lovely boy?" back again would come the reply, "Bollocks." Jackie loved saying this word and nearly caused some trouble when we were having a meeting at Valence Road. Charlie, Ron and I often acted as peacemakers if trouble flared up between rival families. Talking through us as intermediaries, problems could be resolved without either side losing face. On this particular occasion, the birdcage was covered up, so Jackie's piercing whistle wouldn't disturb us, and the meeting with the two firms was going well towards a satisfactory conclusion. Then Albert Smith made some point, and from under the blanket Jackie squawked loudly, "Bollocks!" I thought Albert was going to blow a fuse. He shoved his chair back and glared at his former enemies, thinking someone was taking the piss. But before he could blow up, I whipped the cover off the cage and let him see the bird. He looked a bit dubious until, on cue, Jackie looked at him and as usual squawked, "Bollocks." The meeting ended in good humour. My favourite pet, and looking back, the one I miss most of all, was Mitzi, a Pekingese. That dog went everywhere with me, and it was a very sad day when she was run over and killed on a caravan site near Southend. Of all the things that brought me happiness, it was my late wife Frances, who was my greatest joy. This is a poem I wrote about my feelings for her. We had our joy and sorrow. We did not think about tomorrow. Each day was new and fun. Our love had a good run. We were so in love. Such love could only be sent from above. The magic was in her large brown eyes and beautiful smiles. She was meant for me. She was everything I wished to see. She was just 16. I was 26 years, and I did not foresee the tears because we were so happy. But the tears came and life was no longer a game. We had both the joy and sorrow. Yesterday was not like tomorrow. Our teenage love is no more. We had not counted on what was in store. The girl with the beautiful eyes and smiles was no more. This is what life had in store. I will not forget those eyes and smile. They remain part of my memory forever. How can I forget such a smile? I'm sad, but can say I've known true love and will remember her beautiful eyes. She is somewhere in the skies, so our love remains above. Maybe our love will begin again tomorrow. I first met Frankie Shea, brother to Francis, when I decided to look for a different car than the Vanguard I was driving at the time. He had a car lot in North London, and although he had nothing that suited me, we struck up a friendship that led to him becoming my driver. He was about 18 years of age, a good-looking kid with brown eyes, dark hair, and an olive complexion. As a driver, he was the best I had come across, while his personality made him exceptional company. Sometime after we met, I got caught up in an amateurish so-called protection racket that was nothing to do with me whatsoever. The details are unimportant other than a con man and fraudster who'd never been known to use violence, had struck a shopkeeper, demanded money and threatened him. Without knowing anything about what had gone on, I happened to be with him the day he called back to collect his money. The police were waiting, and we were both arrested. What a fiasco. For once I was innocent, but was looking at a couple of years inside. I spent a few months on remand in Wandsworth, until I was released on bail, pending my appeal against conviction. Needing a driver to ferry me around while I sorted out various bits of business, I made my way to 57 Ormsby Street in Shoreditch, where Frankie lived. I knocked on the door, and when it opened, there stood the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. I hadn't known of her existence because to Frankie she was just his kid sister and not worth talking about. As I gazed into her large brown eyes, her innocent face framed by chestnut hair, I fell deeply in love for the first time. She was 16 and I was 26, and from that day I courted her in a way that some might say was old-fashioned, with courtesy, respect, flowers and chocolates. When I went back to court to have my appeal heard, it was rejected and I was sent back to Wandsworth for 6 months. Believe me when I say that those 6 months were harder to serve than the 30 years that were to come. I was tortured daily by thoughts of Frances. Perhaps she would meet someone else, or perhaps she wouldn't wait for me. On top of that, I clashed with Frankie Shay over the fact that he wanted to take his sister to nightclubs in my absence. One night he took her to Freddie Foreman's club in South London. When they turned up at the door, Fred told him he was not welcome to bring Frances in, as it was against his principles for her to be nightclubbing while I was in prison. I heard recently on the grapevine that Frankie is still in the car game and has a grey head of hair. On reflection, I can only remember the good times we had together, and should he hear this, I would like to wish him all success and happiness in the future. The day I was released from Wandsworth was the beginning of the happiest years of my life. I took Frances to the Astor Club close to Berkeley Square, and I'll never forget how she looked that night as the soft candlelight reflected on her face. I bought a teddy bear wrapped in cellophane and presented it to Frances as a small token of my love. In time I would buy her expensive clothes, jewelry and cars, but none was treasured more than that first gift. We left the club at 3 a.m, parked outside her house in Ormsby Street and kissed and cuddled until the windows steamed up, which amused her very much. We spoke of love, and I told her how I was fighting to reach a life of glamour and bright lights. I was proud of my East London roots, but it was a jungle that I wanted to get out of, and I wanted her to share my journey towards a better life. My mother and father treated her like a daughter, and if I had to be out on business, she was quite happy to sit talking and drinking tea with them. Frances and cousin Rita also hit it off, and they would spend hours shopping in the West End. We had wonderful holidays in all parts of the world, but Frances was the kind of person who could be happy whether we were in Tangiers, the Caravan at Southend, or the kitchen in Valence Road. I can remember when our friend Ronald Stafford drove us to the south of France for a holiday. Whether we were tired or irritable from the hot sun, I can't remember, but like lovers invariably do at some time, we had an argument while sitting outside a bistro. This became heated, resulting in Frances saying, "You're nothing outside of the East End. You're not known here in France or anywhere else in the world." I was very hurt by her assumption that I was arrogant enough to believe I was some sort of international celebrity. Our tiff soon passed, but I slight very easily, and her words had the effect of spurring me on towards an ambition to be known in a circle much larger than my own. Eventually, Frances and I were married in the April of 1965. This was in St. James the Great Church in Bethnal Green, known as the Red Church because of its red brick facade. An interesting fact about this church was that to encourage people to get married, it did so without charge. Once the ceremony was over, the couple were given a loaf of bread and sixpence. When it was our turn, we didn't have to pay, and the bread and coin had long been abandoned. Just over 2 years later, I buried Frances at Chingford Cemetery. My beautiful, innocent wife was dead, and part of me died with her. Our few years spent together were in the main happy, but like many young lovers, we had our differences. She never really took to the club scene, which was my livelihood, but would rather spend time at home or with my family. I think she resented the time I had to spend on my many business dealings. At the same time, Ronnie never took to her in the way I would have liked him to have done. The reasons never fully came out into the open, though I suspect he felt she came between our close bond. Certain personal details came out at her inquest, and all I can say in my defense is that I put her on far too high a pedestal. Instead of accepting she was an ordinary, if remarkably beautiful girl, I viewed her with an almost ethereal quality, which possibly put a strain on this sensitive person. In the months following her death, there were so many times when I wanted to join her, cowardly as that may seem, but life goes on no matter how painfully. My intention was to talk here about our days together in depth, but lifting the veil on that part of my life is proving too painful to remember. If only we could have both had youth and wisdom at the same time. If I could turn the clock back, there are many things I would do very differently. I fell out with Frankie and quarrelled many times with Frances's parents, which in hindsight was very sad. Life is too short to spend it in recriminations, yet it is easy to have a greater understanding looking back. Frances was a lover of poetry, so I'm sure she would appreciate the words of compassion, love and friendship as written by the prophet Khalil Gibran. His work and the sentiments he conveys are among my favorite writings. A short verse he wrote reminds me so much of my parting from her. When you part from your friend, you grieve not, for that which you love in him may be clearer in his absence, as the mountain to the climber is clearer from the plain. With business interests spread so far and wide around town, we would regularly visit a number of venues in the course of an evening. And of course, we'd inevitably meet up with associates from the underworld along the way. Mike Connors could be seen any day of the week outside Holborn Tube Station, where he had a flower stall. He was an unmistakable figure with a face like an underground map due to the deep razor scars all over it. Mike had always been a villain, and at one time had been attacked and cut badly outside White City Dog Truck. He could always be seen at the big fights in the company of my friends Alex Steen and the late Jack Kidd Berg. Further east on the Central Line, a common sight in Bethnal Green, was two local villains, Willie and Johnny Collins, chatting away while leaning on the railings outside the tube station. At one time, Willie was at a gambling club in the Old Gate area when he had an argument with Harry Lazar, the ex-pro lightweight fighter. He knew that he would have no chance in a fist fight with Lazar, so he hit him over the head with a billiard cue. For many years, Johnny visited Ron at Broadmoor, and Ron was very upset when he died a few years ago. If I travelled north from Holborn to the Senate Rooms Club at Highbury, I would be met at the entrance to the club by one of my favourite villains and oldest friends, Steve Murphy. He had the looks of a younger version of the former President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, and he dressed just as good as Reagan. Steve, like Patsy Harrigan, was a good club host, and there was hardly any trouble on his premises. He was one of the top money getters of his day, and had been brought up through the ranks of villainy with such people as Big Alf Mervyn, Tommy Smithson and Tony Muller, so he had been in good company. If I looked around the Senate rooms, I might have seen Tommy Cowley sitting at the bar with a drink in his hand and chain smoking while he chatted away with one of the club hostesses. Tommy was another good friend of ours and was given a 9-month sentence for harbouring Frank Mitchell after we'd got him out of Dartmoor prison. Tommy was about 5'6" in height and slightly built. He had ginger hair and was a neat dresser. He was a compulsive gambler and spent most of his time in gambling spiels. Later on, he would spend 4 years behind these same walls here at Maidstone. Further east again, if I took a drive over to Queen's Public House on the corner of Upton Park at any time in the 1960s, I would expect to see gathered at the bar a group of men who called themselves the Upton Park Mob. They would all be there: Jimmy and Georgie Woods, Porky and Dickie Bennett, Little Jackie Reynolds, Ted Mashin, Ted and Billy Robbins, and if it was a good night, the villain's villain, Billy Hill, would be there. Joining them after a 7-year stretch behind the wall would be Porky Bennett, just released from Dartmoor. He had been convicted of razor slashing someone and demanding money with menaces from Chinese restaurant owners in the area of Pennyfields in Chinatown. Porky would be immaculate in a single-breasted suit, waistcoat, white shirt and dark tie, and topped off with a smart trilby hat that would have graced a gangster movie. Terry Robbins would be wearing a smart raincoat and a checked cloth cap. Jimmy and Georgie would look their usual immaculate selves, and dangling from Jimmy's waistcoat would be a gold chain with a neat pocket watch attached. Little Jackie Reynolds would be sitting at one of the tables in the corner of the bar, and one couldn't help noticing that he had a jagged scar on the left side of his face. His alert little brown eyes would be taking in all that he saw. And that brings us to the end for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.